Hi, and welcome to the Changing Perspectives podcast, the show where we discuss a variety of topics including grief, parenting, health and wellness, and relationships. Join us and explore a number of changing perspectives. We're your hosts, Jenni and Josh Brennan. Hi, Jenni.
Oh, you remembered to say hi
I
to me
did.
first. Hi.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 45. And this is, what's that?
That's a nice, I was going to say even round number, but it's not. But it's I like
45.
multiples of 5 for some reason.
You do, but your favorite number is 23.
I don't know why.
We don't know why.
No.
Michael Jordan.
Yes, absolutely.
That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
exactly
Yep.
why. LeBron James as well. But anyway, enough about basketball. Thank you all for joining us. We're coming at you with a little bit of a pint-sized perspective to start your week off. And what are we going to talk about today?
We are going to talk about anxiety. And I know we've done an episode or two, longer episodes on anxiety.
We
And
have?
I feel like we have, haven't we?
Now I'm going to have to pull up the list.
We're going to have to pull up the I had the list. I feel like we did. If I didn't do it with you on this show, I feel like we did.
Do you have
I'm looking.
another podcast that I'm
Yeah.
not aware of?
Perhaps Managing Your Anxiety, episode 21.
Oh.
Yeah, see, I was right.
Nice.
But that
Yeah,
was
I mean,
back-
you got to this quicker than I did.
That was back, I'm more organized. That was 4 months ago almost. And so it was also a longer one. But
Yeah.
I feel like a pint-sized perspectives on anxiety might be a good thing. Just sort of a quick, shorter episode for when you are struggling with anxiety and kind of forgetting how to manage it. So just
Right.
some quick and easy-ish tips on it, because this has come up for me a lot this week in my sessions. A lot of people, I think, as they're adjusting to sort of the fall and change of routines and even starting to have some holiday stress already.
Yeah.
That's also come up. A lot of people are saying, like, what can I do to get through until my next session with you? I'm seeing that question. So, and just had that question again this morning over an email. So thought it was probably time to just put out some quick and easy tips. You're feeling stressed. This might be an episode you could go back to help you remember, like, oh, okay, how to turn your brain on. We talk about grief brain and how kind of the higher level functioning parts of your brains don't really turn on, don't really work when you're grieving. They also don't really work when you're anxious. So you can forget these tips.
Yeah,
so sometimes you need to hear these tips over and over again.
I can totally relate to that. When I'm stressed out, I'm feeling anxious about something, and I can only like fixate on that one thing,
You're
and I can't.
Terrible human. Your brain does not work when you're anxious.
It's bad.
Especially if you're anxious about me or the boys.
Or the boys, yeah.
Yep.
So
maybe this episode is for you.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, I mean, they got those. I guess it's butterflies for them anytime they're about to do anything sports related, like in the time before the game or whatever. There's a little bit of anxiety and stress with that, but that's normal, I think.
Yes, but I think a lot of people have anxiety, so we can just jump right in. If
Yeah.
that's okay.
Oh, you mentioned holidays, and I mean that really is. It's time now to make plans for the holidays. So whether or not that means if you work in industry like shift work, where you're planning to figure out which holidays you're going to work.
That's right, because you're doing that at work right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My team is trying to figure that out right now.
If you work in the medical field, your shift bids are usually 3 months out, and so
or more. Yeah.
What is today? Today is the 22nd. Yeah,
22nd.
we're almost. So this episode is dropping. Oh, on the 23rd.
Look at that.
Really, we're 3 months out.
Yeah.
From Christmas. So yeah, so
that's
there's
crazy.
A lot of anxiety. So what do you do?
2 months from Thanksgiving, really.
Oh my God. This is supposed to be a pint-sized one.
Okay. Focus.
So what do you do when you're anxious? Actually, I'm curious. What do you do when you're anxious? What do you do that is helpful behavior?
Okay. I don't really know. I mean, making a plan, I think. Talking about it. I like to talk about it with you.
Okay, so you go to your therapist.
Yeah.
Well, that's a tangible tip. So
Yeah.
sort of like lean into the people in your life that are supportive, if you're someone that likes to talk it through.
Right, but I don't necessarily I don't need to talk about what I'm feeling. I need to talk with you about making a plan.
Right. So some people's coping strategy is a problem solving one.
Right.
So that's what you're talking about is having a problem solving approach. If I could like make a list, make a plan, make a cue to cue, it's going to help me to
Yes,
feel
that's me.
In control. I would say I do the same thing. You know, we have you have a business trip coming up and I am going with you, and we have not packed or even brought in our suitcases. I don't know how this is going to work out. But it did help me in my anxiety about it this week. And actually, I sent a picture to a couple of friends because I was in almost sort of full on panic mode about like, oh my God, we're leaving our kids and all this stuff and everything has to get done. And I was sort of on that anxious thought train.
Yeah.
And what helped me was to sit at football practice and bring my computer and create sort of a cue to cue overview document for our child/dog sitter and cat sitter, and make out a like checklist for you and I for all the things we had coming up, because we also had a birthday party.
Super helpful, by the way.
And it helped me. Oh, good. I did it for myself because I felt like it helped me. And even right now, sitting here, knowing that we still have 3/4 of that list that's not checked off, I know that list has captured everything that we needed to capture.
And I was able to add to that list, which is good. You shared. People should use that. I guess we can go back to Kaizen a little bit and with your family. Shared notes are really great. We actually have one for this podcast.
We do.
Yeah. But so if you guys have iPhones,
on your iPhone, I'm sure there's a notepad feature.
There's got to be.
Samsung's, but
but it's a shared document, so
it's like a Google Doc on your phone, but it's easy. I feel like it's easier than opening up a Google Doc, but it's just a shared, checklist, or you can use that Asana app that we talked about a few episodes ago. So problem solving. So actually figuring out what is it that I'm anxious about. And so you were feeling, I was feeling in that moment, I am so scared I'm not going to remember anything. I'm not going to remember everything. I'm going to forget something. And so to help me do sort of rein in that anxiety, I sort of did a brain dump. Here's all the things I need to remember. And here's the way I'm going to organize them and sort of put in a check system. So problem solving is a good way. Sometimes our anxiety is functional, and it's sort of about functional, tangible things. So actually problem solving and sort of adding some organization. I work with a lot of college students and a lot of sort of graduate level students. This is a really stressful time of year for them because they are transitioning into their coursework. So, they just got all their syllabi. They're figuring out who all their professors are, how they get graded, what their class schedule is like, when all their papers are due.
Right.
And that's really overwhelming. And to fit that into an internship, if they're doing an internship, fit that into work, because they have to make money to also afford to live. It's really overwhelming. And so for a few of them that I've seen this past week, what has helped them is to calendar plan, actually sit in front of their computer and color code things on like a Google Calendar, or to get sort of an old fashioned tangible, like agenda book and put everything in. So they plan out and feel like they've got some control. So definitely problem solving is a great approach.
Right. I know a few people that still use a tangible big calendar, like those agenda books.
Yeah, I know quite a few. Yeah. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah, I feel like I'd miss something.
That's not why. For me, you might. For me, it's because my schedule changes so much. Clients need to reschedule, kids stuff gets scheduled, so there's a lot of like erasing things and rescheduling, and so then I'm afraid I would put it in the wrong place. So the technology piece is just easier for me, and it means that you have access to it too. So when I'm working, you don't know who I'm seeing, but when I'm working, I know when you're working, we know when we have other appointments, and so as a family, it helps us to be having shared calendars.
And I have multiple calendars. I have our family personal one and then the work one. And they're not connected, but they are in my mind. Like, I have a 2-monitor system on my desk at work. So I've got on the left-hand side, I've got my work Outlook calendar, and then on the right, I got my Google calendar, and I just make sure they jive and make sure that I update either one, right? Like if there's a boy's appointment that I need to leave work early for or something, et cetera. That's super helpful for me. Yeah. That's part of that sort of managing anxiety through planning for me.
So so planning, so problem solving. This is a good approach for managing your anxiety. If you're feeling super anxious right now, maybe investing an hour, 45 minutes, 30 minutes to sort of problem solving. What are the things that I'm tangibly worried about, that I'm anxious about? Literally do a brain dump, like all the things that you have to get done, and then come up with a plan to get those done. And listen, if you're not a planner, if this is something that's hard for you, lean on the people in your life that are, that can help you, or use sort of a task planner like the Asana app, or notes on your phone, or bring a notepad with you everywhere, so you always have a notepad. A lot of people, when they're anxious, forget things, which is this awful kind of curse of anxiety, is that you wind up with this, your brain shuts off, and so you forget things, and then you're worried that you're going to forget things because you're anxious, so you forget things. Cycle. It is this vicious cycle. And so here's another way that technology is helpful. If you have any kind of phone, we have iPhones.
Don't say her name. She's going to talk to you.
So you can say, hey.
We can say the other one's name, though, because she's not around.
Right. You can also do it with Alexa. You could do it with Alexa's cousin, whose name starts with S. Ready? And ends in Erie.
Let's be annoying to our listenership. Alexa.
Oh, stop. Don't do that. That was rude. When you're driving in the car and a thought pops in your head and you're like, oh no, I'm going to forget that I have to call and make the dog's, vet appointment. You can just say, hey, lady in the phone, remind me in 10 minutes to call the vets, or something like that. So I was actually showing someone last night at a party. I have 56 reminders currently on my phone. Cause I don't clear. These are things that some of them are daily things.
Right.
I won't read you my stuff. Some of them are birthday ideas for your upcoming birthday that I put in there a year ago and told it to remind me.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, a month ago. Anyways, so using technology can help you for those moments where something kind of flits across your brain and you're like, oh crap, I'm going to forget about that because I'm so anxious. Yeah. So get in the habit of telling your phone to remind you, or always having a little notepad with you so you can jot it down. And then at the end of the day, synthesize it so that you feel in control. So you're not feeling like your anxious thoughts and your anxious brain are controlling you. You're feeling like, okay, something might float through my brain because my anxious brain is sort of not working right now. When it does, I've got it. I'm going to capture it in my phone.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Okay. Can I clarify something real quick?
I guess.
So, are you sure?
Sure.
So, from a mental health perspective, like you're a professional.
Yeah. Well, not according to some people.
That's a different episode. Anxiety is an actual diagnosis, or can be, right? So what we're talking about really, and some of these things we're talking about can help those people, but we're not really talking about, the mental health diagnosis.
No, I think we kind of are. I'm glad you clarified that.
Okay.
Because actually, and you don't know what I was going to really talk about today. Actually, you thought we were talking about something different. And I was
totally
like,
different.
I don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about anxiety.
Okay.
Thank you for rolling with me. There are a lot of people that have anxiety. And I think a lot of people throw around the term, I have anxiety. I'm diagnosed with anxiety. My kids have anxiety. And listen, when you go to therapy and you're using insurance, you have to get a diagnosis. If you come to me and I'm using your insurance, or you're using your insurance to pay for your services, I have to tell your insurance why they should pay me. And the only way to do that is to give you a diagnosis. So there are a lot of people that are walking around out there with diagnoses of anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, major depressive disorder, adjustment disorder with mixed anxiety and depression, lots of that stuff. So yes, there are a lot of people out there with mental health diagnoses.
But being stressed out about something, anxious about something, that's human. That's just being a human.
And this is one of the things I was writing this morning to someone, and something I talk about a lot, and was actually going to be kind of my next point. So thank you for the segue.
Sure.
Anxiety gets a bad rap. Anxiety. I think because people are like, oh, I have anxiety. My kids have anxiety. I'm always anxious. Anxiety has become this big, bad, ugly word. Like it's this bad, evil thing. Yeah. And something that we should feel ashamed of. Like, oh, I'm such an anxious person. There's something wrong with me. And that's what I was hearing from someone today. Like, I'm anxious because I'm so anxious. And now that makes me anxious because there must be something wrong with me to be so worried, which is another kind of awful thing that anxiety does to us, is it then makes us worried about our worry.
And it's a snowball.
Totally a snowball effect. And so I think it's really important for people to change their perspective, to work on changing their perspective around anxiety. Anxiety is not bad. Anxiety is a good thing. And for so many people, and I'm going to say that again, anxiety is a good thing. In so many situations, anxiety is our brain's way, our sort of brain's instinctive way of alerting us to a problem.
Yeah.
often the problem is, whoa, slow down. This is too much.
Yeah.
You have too much on your plate. You are going too fast. You are going to forget something. You are not taking care of yourself.
Right.
So when you're feeling anxious, I think we have to look at it and say, what is this anxiety really trying to tell me? Usually there's a message. I'm going to say 99% of the time, there's a message. So anxiety is a good thing. It's a trigger. It's a warning. You know, it's kind of like the check engine light in a car. That's what our anxiety is. So it's not bad. It's useful.
Right.
It doesn't feel good, but it doesn't mean you're broken.
Right.
It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. So if you are feeling really anxious, I think sometimes it's also good to write about it, to journal, but not everybody's a journaler, so that's fine. You can at least write down, like on a piece of paper, on a computer, what are all the things I'm worried about? And maybe these aren't tasks. Maybe it's not like I have to pack a suitcase. Maybe it's like I worry that I'm going to let people down. Write down all the things that you're worried about on one side. And then on the other side, write down why that worry could be a good thing. Does it motivate you to be a better person? Does it motivate you to make change?
That's totally different than most people think, right?
Yes.
Like that forces you to look at it differently.
You're leaning into it, right? So I always tell people, I want you to turn up the dial on your anxious thoughts because I want you to hear them.
Right.
You know, you feel your anxiety, but I want you to really listen to what you're anxious about so we can figure it out.
Because the instinct is to shut it down.
Right. And to say this is a bad thing.
Let's focus on something else.
Something's wrong with me. Here's my anxiety. Something's wrong with me. Let's turn that dial up. And when you turn that dial up, it's overwhelming because you're suddenly like, you know, hearing, it's like you hear music in the background, but you're not really hearing the words.
Right.
If you turn the volume up, you're suddenly hearing the words and you might be like, whoa, they're saying really bad stuff. Or like, oh, this song is really sad. Or this song makes no sense at all. Or their song is actually in a different language. But you don't know that.
I'm notoriously anti-lyrics. I don't listen to lyrics.
So some people don't listen to the lyrics of their anxiety.
Yeah.
So turn up that volume. Know that when you turn it up, then you're going to be overwhelmed because you're actually hearing it more.
Right.
But then let's lean into that. Let's not judge those anxious thoughts. They're there for a reason. So what are they telling you?
Now,
what purpose do they serve?
Right. I mean, I have a question about the way anxiety or stress can affect us, both mentally, but also physically, right? There can be like physical
it's like you're in my brain.
manifestations.
Yes, that was my next step.
Excellent. Because you can...
Did you read my emails this morning?
No. Okay. I swear I didn't. Because there can be ways to deal with it physically.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Literally, that was the third step.
Excellent.
This email that I sent this morning.
This is our
we're on point today.
Same wavelength today. This
Weird.
is going to be the best pint-sized perspectives episode ever.
So sort of recap. So to approach sort of the problem solving, you know, kind of low hanging fruit, can you sort of put a plan in place for some of the things you're anxious about? Then lean into your anxious thoughts, figure out what it is that you're anxious about, and change the way you're thinking about that. It's not a bad thing. Your anxiety is there for a reason. Your anxiety probably has made you who you are today. And if we took your anxiety away, you probably wouldn't be able to function in the capacity that you're functioning today. Maybe you wouldn't be as good of a mom, as good of a friend, as good of a worker, as conscientious about your health. Who knows? But your anxiety is trying to tell you something. So let's figure that out. Then third, how do you actually manage the feeling of anxiety? Because if you've ever felt anxious or you've ever had a panic attack, it's not good. It's awful. Yeah. You know, everyone feels their anxiety differently. Some people have sort of nervous, anxious bellies. So they're like in the bathroom all the time. Yeah. Some people can't eat. Some people are eating too much and then they feel sick. Some people can't catch their breath. Some people feel like they're having like an elephant on their chest, sort of a tightness in their chest.
It can be scary too. I mean, especially if it's happening in kids. I mean, kids have, I feel like, because they don't know enough to express their feelings verbally. I think they're more prone to have these physical manifestations.
Often, like if a kid is having stomach aches a lot, well, they might have GI issues.
Yeah.
But,
they might have a gluten allergy or
they
something.
They might, speaking from experience here. But also, that's often how anxiety shows up in kids because they don't know how to verbalize that sort of feeling of anxiety. So they're just verbalizing what they're feeling physically, which
Mhm.
is like, I just don't feel good. My stomach hurts.
Right, right.
So yeah, it doesn't feel good. And then it can make you feel more worried, more anxious, because now you're worried, oh, what's wrong with me? Like, am I going to get sick? Am I sick? Do I have triple E? There's a mosquito borne illness in where we live right now.
Yeah.
So every day we hear about triple E. Do I have Lyme disease? Do I have mono? Do I have cancer? Is something wrong with me? So these
Yeah.
physical symptoms can really kind of perpetuate that anxiety. So what do? Really, biggest thing you can do is breathe.
Yeah.
But when we have our anxious brain, we don't breathe.
It's really tough.
We don't forget to breathe because our brain is kind of sending us the signal like fight or flight. Something's wrong. Danger, danger. Something is not right with your life. You've got to figure some stuff out. And so what we end up doing is sort of constricting. We're not breathing as much. We're not taking in as much oxygen. We're not, our heart rate is faster. Our blood pressure goes up. So really taking some time to breathe. Like really sit there, maybe in your car for an extra few minutes before you go into work or before you transition from work to home, and really focus on your breath.
You mentioned an app with this. Well, we talked about the square breathing technique in other episodes, I think.
Yeah, but
which is great. But there's an app too, right?
An app. Yeah, there's a few different apps. So if you go to my Instagram page, what am I? I am Changing Perspectives blog on Instagram. I actually have a little category there called anxiety tips. So you could click on that, and that will kind of walk you through the square breathing technique, which is sort of pairing your breathing into 4 sort of equal segments. Also sort of a 5-4-3-2-1 technique, which you can use when you're having a panic attack or when you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, and that's sort of tapping into your senses. So when you're having one of those moments where you're overwhelmed with your anxious thoughts, your breath feels really constricted and tight, thinking about your senses, your sight, your touch, your hearing, your smelling, and your taste. So what are 5 things in that moment that you can see? So deliberately kind of then looking around the space that you are and tuning down your anxious thoughts and tuning up what you're taking in through your senses. So what are the things you see? Are you seeing the leaves making a shadow on the ground? Are you seeing a bug crawling across your windshield? Are you seeing a water bottle on the floor of your car? Are you seeing kids playing outside your window? Are you seeing clouds that look like Mickey Mouse in the sky? So kind of counting out 5 things there. And then moving on to your sense of touch. And so really grounding yourself. What are 4 things that I can touch right now? And then actually doing that. Sort of the coldness of the car window, the smoothness of the car steering wheel, the sort of soft fabric of the passenger seat. What else might we touch in the car? The coldness of the water that I have in I always have a bottle of water or 7 in my car.
Or 10 half empty iced tea cups from Dunkin' Donuts.
That is true. So you're grounding yourself. So you're leaning into your senses. So you focused on 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, then 3 things you can hear. So you're really turning down your thoughts and listening. Do you have your radio on? These are kind of the easy ones.
Yeah.
Do you hear sort of a white noise from the engine? If you listen really, really hard, can you hear like an announcer from the stadium a couple of miles away or something like that? What can you hear? Can you hear a plane flying really high above you? So you've done your sight, your touch, your hearing. Next is smell. What do you smell? Hopefully it's not your son's football cleats.
Yeah, because those are gross.
Maybe it's something like
air freshener
or gum or something like that. Yeah. And then finally, what can you taste? And so maybe that means drinking some cold water or lemonade or coffee or tea or chewing a piece of gum, but really kind of leaning into your 5 senses. And that's going to slow your heart rate. It's going to just instinctively help you to breathe more.
Just hearing you go through that kind of slowed my heart rate a little bit.
Because you have to think, right? Your brain has to turn on a little bit more to be like, all right, what are some things I see? What are some things I hear? What are some things I can taste and touch? And so that automatically turns down your anxious thoughts and allows you then to sort of start breathing. You can then do some deep breaths on your own and sort of restart yourself. It doesn't make the anxiety disappear. And
Right.
that's the other piece here, is that your goal should never be to
It's
make
gonna be
anxiety
there.
go away.
Yeah.
It should not be to like get rid of it, to no longer be an anxious person, but to understand how to have a better relationship with anxiety, how to control your anxiety and not let it control you.
And again, it's normal. To be anxious or to be stressed out is to be human,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
An adult, to be a kid, because we all have different levels depending on where we're at in our life. And everybody has stuff that's relative to them.
Right.
Anxiety is relative,
Right.
stress is relative, and you can't judge anybody else. Being like, oh, you shouldn't be anxious about that. It's no big deal. Or you shouldn't be stressed about that. It's no big deal, because that is, it's their own it's their
Right.
own individual.
Right. So don't
feeling.
listen to the naysayers who might be saying
Right.
like, oh, stop being so anxious, or don't worry. Understand that
Hashtag
those
ignore the
people,
naysayers. Getburly.com.
those people, for them, their anxiety is just different for them. But
Right.
that doesn't mean they're better than you. It doesn't mean you're broken. It just means that your anxiety is trying to tell you something. That your internal
Yeah.
warning system is kind of working for you in a way that's important.
Right.
That was going to transition me into something else, and then I just lost it. So maybe it will come back.
Okay. Well,
the breathing.
I don't want to cut you off, but we're about 26 minutes in of this pint-sized perspectives, and I wanted to talk about an article on your blog, jennybrennan.com/blog.
The
Check out the
shopping-
categories.
the
Yeah,
shopping
this
one.
is really cool because, anyway, Jenny has this article, and we're going to put this in the show notes. It's 7 of the best Amazon products for stress relief.
Because I love Amazon.
Yeah, you have a love affair with Amazon.
Yes.
As do most people.
Oh, yeah, who doesn't?
Just look at their stock.
Yeah.
And a lot of these are really great. You just talk about some products in here and why they're important. And I guess this inspired the first product on here inspired what I was saying about the physical
Okay. Yeah.
manifestation, because it's a weighted blanket.
Yeah.
And that's really good. And I'm just going to read the first 2 sentences. Are you someone who likes a good hug or snuggling up under a warm blanket? Do you feel better when you can sit somewhere that makes you feel safe and secure? And you said a weighted blanket provides all those physical sensations. Do you want to talk about that for a second? I'm not really familiar. I mean, I like what you don't want to talk about it.
Okay. I'm just kidding. I just wanted to know what you would say.
It's like, what? I can vamp about it.
No, so weighted blankets actually. So when I first started working way back when I was like in early high school, I was working in the public school system as a classroom aide for a preschool class with children who were on the autism spectrum, and a lot of them had sensory processing problems, difficulty. Everything we just walked through, those senses, the sight, taste, touch, smell, hearing, all of that. It was like all of that was overwhelming for them. They could hear, see, taste, smell, touch everything in the environment. It was like their filters were non-existent.
Right.
And so that's scary and overwhelming. And a therapeutic approach that was really kind of popular back then was sort of weighted blankets, because it would help the kids sort of turn inward and sort of regulate their sensory processing. Like most things, we've realized over time that other people can benefit from this. This is not just for children with sensory processing issues. Also, there are adults with sensory processing issues. I think that I am one of them. Like, looking back on it, my sister and I both say this, looking back on this in childhood, we're like, we probably needed some occupational therapy around our sensory issues.
Well, I remember thinking about weighted blankets takes me back to going to the dentist as a kid, where you get the x-rays.
Oh, yeah, the lead things.
And when they put that lead sort of blanket on you
that's a great
to
description.
protect you, but I can feel that. And I was like, oh, that kind of it's calming, because the dentist is an anxious place to be.
That's a great description of it. That's what it feels like. And you can listen. Now there are so many weighted blankets. It used to be like a specialty item that insurance would have to get involved with, or people would have to sort of make themselves. Now you can go on Amazon and get one. You can get little lap blankets, everything up to like king size, comforter size, and they're different weights. So you can start out with a lighter one or go super heavy, but really worth trying. Just to kind of help you center yourself at the end of the day, or to get yourself started at the beginning of the day, but to kind of bring everything inward. That's a great little thing to have, in on your couch at home,
Right,
or
right.
a little lap blanket at work, just to bring you a little sense of calming. So that's a good one. I
Let's-
remembered what I was going to say that I
Oh,
forgot.
okay.
Caffeine. When we're talking about the physical
Oh.
stuff, if you're someone that does sort of run a little higher with anxiety, caffeine's not really great for you. So keep that in mind. If you're
Yeah, it
someone
could
that
be the
like
opposite
drinks,
effect.
if you're well,
Yeah.
so for some people, caffeine does have a paradoxical effect and can calm their anxiety. But for most people, anxiety is going to make you feel. I mean, caffeine is going to make you feel
Right,
more
right,
anxious.
right.
So keep that in mind. Are
I think
you having
that
3
came
cups
up
of
in our
coffee?
other episode about managing
Yeah.
stress. I think we talked a lot about like those things that we use, that we lean to maybe calm ourselves, or
Right.
like maybe having a drink, like alcoholic drink or
Right.
whatever, but it could
Cigarette,
have the
whatever.
opposite effect. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it might make you feel better in the moment, but really what it's doing is raising your anxiety. So to just be mindful of that. But that was the other piece I wanted to say physically. Did you want to highlight anything else?
I want to highlight one more, and I want to invite everybody to check out this article. And this is kind of a teaser for the article. So we got the weighted blanket, and the other one I wanted to mention, which I absolutely love, is essential oils.
Oh yeah.
We use essential oils all the time for many things here in our house. But you talked about this being something that can be helpful for anxiety relief and stress relief. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think essential oils also maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago were kind of looked at as being a little bit out there and crazy and kooky. And now they've become much more mainstream and much more accessible. And you can do high-end essential oils through something like a Young Living, or what's the other one? There's another one, doTERRA. Really high-end essential oils. You can diffuse them in a diffuser. And, some of them smell lovely. Some of them smell awful. And there's about
for the most part, I love the way the diffusers are great. I love the smell. It can be a little overwhelming. You just got to be careful with how much you put in.
Yeah, you're
diffuser.
heavy-handed with the essential oil,
know.
and I think that my sense of smell. Well, we know the smell. My sense of smell is heightened.
Yeah, you're a superhero, so
I have
no big deal.
superhero smell.
Yeah.
And so, just a little bit.
You might be a werewolf.
Oh, I might be.
Yeah.
Feels a little overwhelming for me. So that is something you have to kind of play with a little bit.
A lot is a little. A lot goes. What's that phrase?
A little goes a long.
A little goes. A lot is a little.
That is
boy.
actually what you do. You
Yeah.
But there are
a
literally,
little goes a long way.
There's
literally
a million uses for them. So you can do any Google search, and it'll tell you sort of, some of them have blends that are like stress relief, anxiety relief blends. I think I linked to an anxiety relief blend in the article, that are a combination of different essential oils. Or you can buy your own essential oils and make your own blends. You can blend. I often blend lavender and peppermint in my office.
That's cool.
When I'm diffusing, because lavender is really soothing and relaxing, but for me, lavender is really kind of overpowering. Something about like that floral note for my super smell, and then peppermint is just kind of also relaxing and cooling and kind of refreshing. So you can kind of mix up your own blends and play with them a little bit. And you also can ingest them. I'm not going to advise anyone on ingesting them, because some you have to make sure you're ingesting ingestible grade essential oils. So do your research. Same thing with if you're putting it on your skin. Remember when we went away? So peppermint is also really good for sunburns. But essential oils have to, if they're going to be put on your skin, most essential oils have to be put in a carrier oil,
lotion,
kind of blended with a lotion or with like a almond oil.
You can't just dump it on your skin.
No. And I remember we were traveling and one of our kids got a sunburn, and I was like, I'll put peppermint oil on it because it'll help. Really good, really great for sunburns. But he was being helpful and thought he would put it on himself.
Right.
But he didn't put it in a carrier
How old was
oil.
he? That was a long time ago.
It was like it was probably 4 years ago. So just be careful and be mindful. He was okay. Then we were able to wash it right off and mix it with carrier oil, so he didn't burn himself.
Right.
But he learned the hard way, so I'm sharing with all of you. Make sure you put it in a carrier oil. And there's lots of different diffusers. You can get super expensive, super fancy, like wireless ones, or you can get plain ones for like 10, 15 bucks.
I love the ones we have that have the light feature.
Yes.
Like the soft lighting, and you can turn it's almost like candlelight almost, but it changes the hue, and it's really cool.
Yeah. So
The other
those are
thing
good to have
we use,
just diffusing in the air to sort of naturally kind of bring down some of your anxious
Right.
responses.
Oh, real quick, they have the eucalyptus ones that are they're like Vicks for when you're sick.
Vicks Vapor
Yeah.
Rub. Yeah.
But it's really good. But the other thing, real quick, before we end this episode, we'll talk about the other thing we use essential oils for, and that's for stinky football and athletic gear.
Yeah,
Right.
Actually, we should try to put that in as cleats.
I know.
For thieves or thieves oil. Can
Really
be
good for that stuff.
Good for smells. Yeah. It's a really weird thing. Like there's stuff to help with like warts if your kids get plantar warts. There's all sorts of. That's a whole different topic. Actually, that's on our list at some point.
It actually is. So more to come on essential oils. Maybe another pint-sized perspectives on.
Josh is all in with essential oils. He's always got the diffuser going. So
I do.
And I think you were
Skeptical.
That's what I was trying to say.
We're going to help each other out today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You were skeptical about it when I first started talking about essential oils,
Right.
but then you
like,
leaned
what?
all the way in because I think you realized that they really do change the mood and can bring your anxiety down. And our kids realize that too. So in fact, we don't have one in our room because our kids fight over.
They stole it.
Yeah. So
well, sometimes we have one going in the studio.
Where is it?
It was moved for Jackson's party the other night.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's other things on that list too. That article.
Yeah,
so
check it out.
That sometimes can be sort of your problem solving approach too. Like I'm going to get some things to help me kind of get through my anxiety. So just a quick little episode to kind of get you jump started in terms of thinking about how to manage your anxiety, because this has been one of those things that came up a lot this week.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are struggling with how to manage your anxiety, I think this might be helpful. Hopefully this was helpful, and really, really try to think about changing the way that you're looking at your anxiety. Your anxiety is not your enemy. It is your friend, actually. It's there to protect you. It's there to guide you. We just have to make sure we know how to kind of listen to it, and sometimes how to tell it it's wrong. Like, no, that's not something we have to be anxious about. It's okay. We've got this. So certainly can talk about this more in detail, but this was just a little kind of, see you out there being anxious. It's okay. Here's
all
some
good.
tips.
It's going to be good.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for guiding us through that, Jenny.
You're welcome. Well, now my anxious brain is saying we have like 40
go.
minutes to get out of the house with 2 football players.
It's time for football. Okay, everybody, that is going to do it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Again, for today's show note links, you can check out jennybrennan.com, check out the blog section, and that blog article is entitled 7 of the Best Amazon Products for Stress Relief. All right, everybody. Again, thanks again for joining us. Please follow us on Facebook at Changing Perspectives Podcast and on Instagram at Changing Perspectives Blog. You can send us an email to changingpodcast@gmail.com. You can also visit that website by going to changingperspectivesblog.com. And while you're there, don't forget to visit the shop to check out all of that great Changing Perspectives merchandise. Go ahead and subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode, and we will see you next time. Say bye, Jenny.
Bye, Jenny.
Are you looking to level up in life with your health, mindset, and personal mission statement? Are you a coach of a sports team or leader of an organization looking to build critical leadership skills for your team? If so, then look no further than GetBurley.com. The Get Burley brand offers life coaching, personal fitness programming, and team building retreats, clinics, and seminars, all designed to empower individuals and teams to become the best versions of themselves. The Get Burley Team Building and Leadership Development Division works specifically with athletic teams, corporate groups, and educational institutions. Through their signature seminars, workshops, and/or retreats, Get Burley will have your team firing on all cylinders and working as an inspired, cohesive unit, committed to the mission and vision of your program or organization. Get Burley will build the inner strength necessary for you and your team to gain clarity around your mission, input strategies to enhance mindfulness, amplify personal accountability and ownership, and much, much more. Do yourself and your team a favor and visit GetBurley.com. Get Burley. Be the best version of you.
The Changing Perspectives podcast is produced, recorded, and edited by Dizzy Rose Studios. Please visit Dizzy Bird Studios on Facebook, facebook.com/DizzyBirdStudios.